Hi, my name is Lindsey Bell-Kerr, and it's my privilege to serve as pastor at Christ Church United Methodist in Santa Rosa. Today we're looking at Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. May God bless the reading of this word and bless us with wisdom and understanding. I'm the kind of person who likes to review the plan for tomorrow the night before. Each night before I go to bed, I get out my smartphone and look at what's on the next day's agenda, reviewing appointments and prioritizing tasks. I find that if I don't plan tomorrow, tomorrow plans me. Usually that happens anyway, despite my best intentions. I may have in my mind what is most important, but it is often what is most urgent that wins the day. The tasks right before me grab my attention. I become reactive rather than an actor in my own life. It's like a line from the Walt Whitman poem, Leaves of Grass. There was a child who went forth every day, and every object he looked upon, that object he became. Our environment, the world around us, shapes us. Paul speaks of this too in his letter to the Romans today. He says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." At first, we might think that Paul is trying his hand at poetry, conform and transform, this semi-rhyme, this shared meaning. That play on words is in English alone, which Paul didn't speak. Paul writes to us in Greek, and those two words have very distinctive meanings. In Greek, the word for conform is schematizo. It's where we get the English word schematics. It means the bare bones. It sort of implies a slimming down or a basic understanding of things. When we talk about being conformed, it's that we give up what is unique and we acclimatize to what is right in front of us. There is a reason why Paul warns us not to be conformed by this world. The world desires to conform us, it seems. I find that to be true, especially now. Not so long ago, I knew plenty of people who would engage in healthy dialogue, who would share different and sometimes contrary ideas in ways that were meaningful and polite in seeking common ground. Now it seems this world is full of hyperbolic politicization. It's full of hyperbole. This world that is increasingly politicized seems to have increasingly politicized us. That's not just true in our political and social sphere. There are other conforming factors of this world. This week, as there are more fires in Sonoma County, I wonder if you can feel the anxiety in the air, this collective stress and trauma of the planet. It's almost as if it is conforming us to that anxiety. I wonder if, like me, you woke up during that night of the thunderstorm, the nights of the high winds, full of fear, smelling the air. It is easy to conform to the anxiety of this world. This is why Paul offers us the alternative. He doesn't say simply not to conform. Paul doesn't say to ignore the anxiety or the grief or the righteous anger of this world. Instead, he says, be transformed by the renewing of your minds. The word for transform in Greek is one we're more familiar with, metamorpho. Metamorpho, like metamorphosis. Be transformed, be metamorphosized by the renewing of your minds. We know the word metamorphosis best for the process that butterflies go through. They start as caterpillars and then they go into a cocoon and they wake up and they're butterflies. I remember when I was young, I thought the caterpillars just went into the little cocoon and they, developed wings. Turns out that's not how it goes at all. The caterpillar goes into the cocoon and undergoes an entire cellular breakdown. If you opened a cocoon partway through metamorphosis, there's just a mess. It's out of that cellular breakdown, out of that breaking down of the old, that the new, the beautiful, the perfect, the butterfly becomes. Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, Paul writes, that you may discern the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. When Paul uses this word transform, he understands the difficult and sometimes painful work that is required in transformation, the work of being vulnerable and honest about where we are falling short, the work of being open about what we desire, about the faith that we have in the world that we hope to come in our lifetimes. Be transformed by the renewing of your minds, says Paul. This is the difficult work of transformation. It doesn't happen overnight. It's the ongoing work of renewing your mind for the rest of your life. As I've shared with many of you before, I've spent some time here and there in various convents. And I remember once I was in this convent up on the north coast, and I was taken again by how all of the sisters made time each day for physical labor and for cooking and for prayer and for study. At some point I said to one of the novices, I said, wow, it's amazing to be in this place with so many holy people, so many transformed people. And she said, where do you see the holy people? We are simply here together because we are seeking this transformation of which you speak. That is, they are living into and practicing transformation. They're practicing it together so that they may lift one another up in this most difficult process. Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. As the world seeks to conform us into the way of the world, we need to be seeking a place to live out and practice our own transformation. That cocoon, that's the church. This community is the place where we seek that transformation together. We seek it through practices of prayer, of listening, journaling, scripture study. There are any number of ways that we can seek to live into that transformation, our own personal transformation, that we would be the people seeking to transform the world. Beloved, in these most difficult times, it is easy to conform to the will of the world. It is easy to give in to this collective anxiety or cynicism or fear. I invite you instead to be transformed, to be active rather than reactive, to step out in faith. What is it that helps you ground yourself in your faith? How is it that you could make time to practice to practice that transformation this week? How is it that you could connect more to this community of faith where we find that transformation together? Do not be conformed by this world, but instead be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Thanks be to God.